Russian President Vladimir Putin is taking center stage with 36 world leaders in Russia. It's for a historic summit of the BRICS alliance, a bloc of growing economies that takes its name from its founding members, Brazil, Russia, India, China. Putin's goal is to show a strong Kremlin that has widespread international support despite the efforts of the West. Joining me now is former foreign policy advisor for the Obama campaign and former State Department official David Tafuri. David, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
The eyes of the world are on this BRICS summit right now, and you have a Kremlin foreign affairs advisor calling it the largest foreign policy event ever held by Russia. What message is Putin wanting to send with this?
He wants to send a number of messages. First of all, he wants to show that Russia still has a lot of friends around the world, that he has not been ostracized, that he can host something like this and world leaders will come to it. And he wants to also show that there's an alliance of countries that don't agree with the U.S.-led NATO alliance and with the U.S.-led G7, and don't agree with economic and sanctions measures that the U.S. and European countries have put on Russia. And that is probably the most important thing for Russia, as Russia's economy has suffered significantly since it illegally invaded Ukraine because of the sanctions. It wants to work with other countries that are not part of that alliance that has put sanctions on Russia to find ways to evade sanctions. And that's probably the most troubling part of this summit as well. The countries that are there and that are participating are part of a dialogue about how do you avoid sanctions. And from a Western perspective, these sanctions are justified because of the illegal invasion of Ukraine, because of the atrocities that Ukraine has committed, because Putin himself is indicted as a war criminal by the ICC.
And David, let me just ask you, too, how much of this summit is just a photo op? I mean, does BRICS actually hold influence on the world stage?
It doesn't hold the type of influence that, for instance, the NATO alliance does. It's not a military alliance. And notably, some of the countries that are part of the BRICS alliance don't even agree with each other on lots of fundamental things. So it doesn't have the strength and the fortitude of the NATO alliance, and it can't act together as the NATO alliance does on military and on defense matters. But it does matter in the sense that it is a convening forum for countries that don't agree with Western values, that don't agree with the ability of Western countries to put sanctions and other punishments on countries that violate international law. And in that way, it is concerning because it's an end run on international law. It's an end run on bigger multilateral organizations like the UN, although I would note the UN Secretary General is attending BRICS, which is something he's been largely criticized for, especially by the Western countries.
Less than a minute left. Obviously, America is watching this closely. I'm just curious, how do you think America is viewed on the world stage right now? You know, are we in a vulnerable spot with a lame duck president and an uncertain election here?
I don't think so right now, because I think the world expects us to have elections every 4 years. We're going about that in the normal way that we do. There will be, after the election on November 5th, there'll be a period where there's a lame duck session, and hopefully we won't have like what happened 4 years ago with the January 6th events, an attempt to disrupt the normal process of slating votes and choosing a president. And if that doesn't happen, I don't think there's any reason for the world to worry. I think the fact that Trump tried to undermine the NATO alliance could be concerning if Trump is elected on November 5th for the rest of the world, especially for NATO countries. And also, notably, both Trump and Vance have been critical of the Biden administration's policy towards Ukraine, the strong defense of Ukraine, providing aid, weapons to Ukraine, and that could change, and that could be concerning for all of those countries that are rooting for Ukraine, supporting Ukraine, giving money and weapons to Ukraine.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. Also, don't forget to click that red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.